Welcome to the InnoGuide podcast, where we share the works of authors and mentors to guide innovation. I'm your host, Bob Boudelier. This podcast, my website, my newsletter, and my community are all focused on helping you discover the secrets of innovation in the age of AI. Since I don't rely on paid ads, I want to thank our customers who bring me onto their programs on a fractional basis as a technical product accelerator, working alongside their teams to help them develop products smarter and faster without adding risk, while bringing human-centered AI skills into their organizations. You can learn more at www.innoguide.net. In this episode, number 93, we'll be sharing The Sales Reset. Forget the scripts, trust yourself, win consistently, by Wesleyne Whittaker. Every business needs to solve a problem for a customer and find a way to deliver that solution to those customers. Good match is achieved when your solution offers good value to your customers. Wesleyne, the author of this book, had to learn how to sell her company's product with no training and no guidance, and she was a chemist. What I love about the book is that she takes us on this journey of how she learned to listen to customers, not to find their pain points, as everyone would tell us to do, because pain points don't need to be solved today, but to find the problems they're encountering, to learn about those that have to be solved today. When she found a way to align solving those problems with the solutions her company offered with their products, she did so, and this book is about that journey. She teaches us to follow her process, solving problems for clients as she did. I really enjoyed the book, and I recommend you pick up a copy if this is something of interest to you, because what I'm sharing here are just the highlights from the book. She has far more detail in her book, plus some PDF guides that will help you along the way as they helped me. So without further ado, let's get started. Introduction. Let me start with a conversation that changed everything. I was sitting across from Greg, a sales director who was frustrated, impatient, and honestly a bit skeptical about why he'd called me in the first place. His team was at 85% of goal. The pipeline was soft, and he knew exactly what he needed, or so he thought. All that warm, fuzzy stuff won't move the needle, he said bluntly. I need my team to close more business, better discovery meetings, faster pitches. I've been selling for 25 years. I know the issue. I let his words sit for a moment. Then I asked him a simple question. Then why did you call me? His confidence cracked. He shifted in his seat. My top rep, he admitted, the one hitting 150% goal. The rest of the team, barely hitting 50, some not even hitting 30. That's when everything changed, because I realized Greg was missing the bigger picture. His top rep wasn't winning because of better tactics or a perfect pitch. He was winning because he believed in what he was doing. That belief fueled every action. And that's what this book is about. My name is Wesleyne, and I've spent my career fighting to be heard in rooms where I didn't fit the mold. I started as a chemist, moved into sales, and built a reputation not because I knew all the tactics, but because I learned how to think differently. Now I work with sales teams who are talented, hardworking, and still not seeing the results they want. Not because they're lazy or unskilled, but because no one has helped them deal with what's really holding them back. Here's the truth. Sales isn't just about skills. It's about belief. Think about the most successful salespeople you know. What makes them different? They don't hesitate to reach out to high-value prospects. They don't take rejection personally. They don't get stuck overanalyzing before taking action. The difference comes down to their belief system. That's where belief selling, and this is their trademark, comes in. It's built on 6 pillars. First, you break barriers. Identify and eliminate the self-limiting beliefs holding you back. Then you embrace growth, replacing those barriers with an empowered way of thinking. You learn skills, implement boldly in real-world situations, and execute consistently through daily practice. Finally, you fuel others by teaching what you've learned. This isn't just another sales framework. It's a shift in how you show up. Most sales training starts with tactics. This starts with you, your mindset, your habits, your ability to execute with confidence. The journey won't be quick or easy, but here's what I know. Elite salespeople train like their lives depend on it. They role-play objections before calls. They listen to their own recordings. They reflect after every conversation. That's how they create consistent results. So here's a question for you. How many hours are you willing to devote each week to becoming truly elite? Because if you're ready to do the inner work, to identify what's really holding you back and build a foundation that actually sticks, then let's begin. Each chapter builds on the one before. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Your transformation starts now. 1. Entering the mysterious world of sales. Wesleyne's taking us back to the moment that changed everything for her. Picture this. She's sitting at an airport, heading to Munich, Germany, reflecting on how she never imagined sales would be part of her story. Growing up, her options felt crystal clear: doctor, lawyer, engineer. She was convinced she'd become a doctor, and she committed to that dream with everything she had. In college, she pivoted to chemistry and pursued a PhD with complete dedication, doing summer research with brilliant minds, traveled, presenting her work, and got accepted into every PhD program she applied for with full scholarships. Then, after her first semester of graduate school, she quit. It was the first time she ever gave up on something, and it felt devastating. But she chose her mental health over academic credentials, and that decision taught her something crucial. Success doesn't follow a predetermined path. Within a month, she landed a job as a failure analysis chemist, investigating why plastic parts broke. This job became her unexpected laboratory for learning something remarkable. She'd investigate problems methodically, uncover root causes, and write up findings for the salespeople to share with customers. She became fascinated by what they did. Her favorite salesperson was Joe. She says this: "One day he came to me excited about how our testing had solved a critical cooler problem for a major company. Through our work, we'd identified micro cracks forming at low temperatures, but only with certain products inside. I'd run tests combining weight and temperature variables to pinpoint the exact failure threshold. Because of our data, the customer could modify their product recommendations and save millions in warranty claim. At 23, hearing about millions of dollars saved absolutely blew my mind. But what I didn't realize then is I was already building the skills that would define my entire sales career: problem solving, translating complex information into actionable insight, and genuine collaboration. Those weren't chemistry skills anymore. They were sales skills." The truth she wants you to understand is this: your story matters in sales. Most of us didn't dream of this career, we stumbled into it. But the experiences that shaped you, especially the difficult ones, build your resilience. That's your superpower. Consider Mary, a 15-year-old sales veteran who still battles self-doubt, rooted in nearly failing her high school English final. But that same moment taught her grit. When faced with possible failure, she didn't quit. She advocated for herself and studied relentlessly. Today, that resilience fuels her sales success, though she doesn't always recognize it. Your origin story isn't just a memory, it's your foundation. Whether your journey's been turbulent or smooth, pivotal moments shape who you are. To move forward, you need to catalog those moments and understand what they taught you. She says, "Here's what I know. Success isn't tied to a single path. The skills you build show up in unexpected ways. Curiosity is your superpower. When you stay curious and ask questions most people in your role don't, you discover new possibilities. I'm asking you to do the work. Write down every pivotal moment you remember, good and bad. Read them aloud. Identify the top 3 that impacted you the most. Then when self-doubt creeps in during a lost deal or a missed quota, refer to that list and remind yourself you were made for this." This is where belief selling begins. Break barriers, embrace growth, learn from your past, implement boldly, and execute consistently. Your story gives you clarity, resilience, and purpose. Now let's discover what happens when the training you receive doesn't align with your journey. 2. Why selling is about people, not products. When I started my sales career, I thought I had it all figured out. After 13 intensive days of product training in Germany, I'd memorized every feature specification and historical detail about our instruments. My trainer wrapped up and told me the one thing I supposedly needed to know: just talk about all the features and specs, and people will buy from you. I nodded along, but something felt wrong. And here's the thing. The problem is everywhere. Sales organizations invest millions training people on products, but almost nothing teaching them how to actually connect with human beings. The result, salespeople become feature dumping machines. They talk, they pitch, they present, but they never truly listen. And buyers sit there thinking, so what? Selling isn't about proving how much you know. It's about helping customers feel understood. I learned this the hard way, she said. My first week in the field, I had all the product knowledge imaginable, but no practical clue what to do with it. Working alone from home, terrified to ask for help, I even Googled, what does a salesperson do every day? Which wasn't exactly helpful when you're selling $50,000 instruments to labs. Her manager suggested she reach out to existing customers. I scheduled 2 meetings for Monday and prepared obsessively, she said. Memorized features, wrote competitors' comparisons, packed my brochures, felt ready to conquer the world. I wasn't. In that first meeting, after a polished 15-minute feature pick, the client cut me off. That won't be necessary. I'm not interested. Please don't contact me again. Her second meeting ended identically. 2 rejections in one day, and she'd followed the script perfectly. That afternoon, something clicked. She remembered a salesperson named Joe who actually focused on customers' problems instead of their products. She realized her fundamental mistake. People don't care about your features or why you're better. They care about themselves, about their issues, and whether your product could genuinely help. She completely changed her approach. Instead of launching into pitches, she walked in with curiosity. What's your biggest frustration? What's changed recently? What do you wish your team had more of? She stopped thinking about what to say next and really listened to their words, their tone, their body language. She'd repeat back what they said, gently digging deeper when they mentioned symptoms instead of a root cause. Then she'd ask what mattered most before offering any solution. People said yes because she listened better, not because she talked more. That territory, which had generated only $50,000 annually for 3 years, produced 10 times that in 11 months. Real transformation starts with your existing customers. Pull a CRM report sorted by revenue and identify 6 accounts with untapped potential. Schedule meaningful meetings focused purely on understanding their experience. Ask targeted questions about their challenges, impact on their teams, alternatives they've explored, and changes they've noticed. Let them guide the conversation. When you approach prospects with this genuine understanding, everything shifts. You're no longer a salesperson trying to close a deal. You're someone who genuinely cares. And for people who are developing proposals for customers on technically oriented programs, again, you may not be pulling a CRM report, but schedule meaningful meetings. Learn what they want. If you're developing a product, don't make assumptions of what people want. Make the connection to people and get their input. Then you're not designing for an idea in your head. You're designing for something people will actually want. 3. Winning starts in your mind. Wesleyne says this, let me start with being completely honest with you. Before I turned 30, I had built what looked like the perfect life. 6 figures, crushing sales targets year after year, luxury SUV, designer shoes, kids in private schools, expensive vacations. She checked every single box. But here's what nobody tells you. Success on paper doesn't automatically fill the void inside. After the meetings ended and the house got quiet, she'd sit in all that abundance feeling completely empty. No amount of money or trips could shake the feeling that something was missing. That's when she finally sought professional help, a massive step in an industry where asking for support carries a real stigma. During therapy, her counselor asked her something that stopped her cold. Are you proud of yourself? Proud? I believed pride was for people who changed the world, overcame massive obstacles. I'd just done what was expected. College, good job, hit my quota. That wasn't special. The truth was, I'd spent my entire career chasing the feeling of being enough. And no matter what I achieved, it never arrived. Then she said something I'll never forget. I've had people sit on that same couch with similar struggles, and they're nowhere near as successful as you are. That hit me hard. I realized I'd been measuring my worth entirely by what I could produce. I was so focused on performance that I never learned to be proud of who I'd become, resilient, determined, steady. That conversation cracked something open. I gave myself permission to be proud, not just of what I've accomplished, but of who I was becoming, and that changed everything. Here's what she discovered. Winning starts in your mind. Your self-worth didn't begin in sales. It began at home, shaped by how your parents responded to your experiences. Those early patterns follow us into our careers. The way you respond to rejection, the stories you tell yourself after a prospect ghosts you, those all trace back to deeper belief systems. Now, she says, let me be direct about something else. Your job in sales isn't to be everyone's friend. Your prospects don't need to like you. They need you to bring value and solve their problems. That's what earns trust. I see salespeople constantly avoiding tough questions because they want to keep conversations comfortable. They give discounts without negotiating. They let prospects reschedule repeatedly. And every single time they're prioritizing being liked over making the right sales decision. But being liked will not close deals. Sales is about respect, not approval. Trust closes far more deals than likability ever will. Let's talk about time, because that determines much of your success. Poor salespeople are reactive. They respond to inquiries, send quotes when asked, make exactly 10 calls because their boss told them to. Great salespeople, they're proactive. They make 25 calls before anyone tells them to make 10. They shatter quotas every month. The difference? Control over their time and energy. These top performers have a dedicated power hour every day, and here's the key. They use it for the task they like the least, not the one they enjoy the most. When she was in field sales, she realized she was prospecting at 3 p.m. when she was distracted. She's a morning person, so she moved prospecting to before email. She'd log into LinkedIn when her brain was the sharpest, and the result, she stopped scrambling at month end. Identify when you're mentally sharpest. Schedule a 1-hour appointment with yourself at that exact time and name it specifically. Cold calls, follow-ups, or CRM updates, whatever it is. Commit to this for 21 work days. Research shows it takes that long to build a habit. And the accountability piece? Would you cancel a meeting with your boss? No. Then don't cancel your power hour. Your beliefs dictate your actions, and your actions determine your results. Shift your mindset, take control, and watch everything transform. 4. From chaos to consistency. Wesleyne says this, I'll be honest with you. I stumbled into sales completely unprepared. I was doing what I call random acts of selling, sending quotes without talking to prospects, following up endlessly with generic check-ins, rushing into free demos without qualifying anyone, and caving on discounts at the first pushback. It was a disaster, and I had no idea how to fix it, because nobody ever taught me there was an actual process to follow. Then came my turning point. I opened my contact resource management tool, my CRM, and saw 4 words staring back at me. Qualification, discovery, negotiation, close. That's when it clicked. These weren't buzzwords, they were a roadmap. Selling isn't about winging it. There's a structure, and once you master it, everything changes. Let me walk you through how this actually works. The traditional sales funnel exists for a reason. You always need more activity at the top than the bottom. We break it into distinct stages, starting with the identity stage, where leads fall into 2 categories. Marketing qualified leads have shown passive interest. Maybe they downloaded a resource or engaged with your content, but they're not ready to talk yet, so don't chase them. Stay visible and valuable instead. Sales qualified leads are different. They signal they're ready to engage, whether by filling out a form or requesting a meeting. Here's the critical part, though. Just because someone takes a meeting doesn't mean they're fully qualified. You need to answer 3 questions. Do they have a problem you can solve? Do they actually want to solve it? And are they willing to let you help? This isn't about budget or timing yet. Once you've answered yes to all 3, you move into the nurture stage. During nurture, shift from seller to guide. Get to the heart of their problems, what's not working, and why it matters now. Uncover who else needs to be involved, because that junior contact probably isn't signing the contract. Understand their investment process, but don't use budget as a qualifier. Use it to assess whether you can actually close the deal. I learned this the hard way, she said. I spent 3 meetings with someone I thought was the decision maker, but they weren't. By the time I figured it out, the deal was gone. Real discovery is about guiding with intention and building genuine alignment. When it's time for a demo, don't show more than 5 features and tie every one directly to the challenges you've uncovered. Most deals die because we get excited and overwhelm buyers with features they'll never use. Now, here's where many salespeople fail. They don't understand the math behind their funnel. She worked with a rep named Marcus who felt overwhelmed. When she analyzed his numbers, he was converting at 33% for each stage. Working backward from his goal of 5 closed deals, he needed 15 proposals, 45 nurtured prospects, and 139 qualified leads at the top. Thinking of it simply, for every deal you want to close, you need 3 proposals, 9 nurtures, and 27 leads. The biggest mistake isn't your closing technique. It's not having enough activity at the top of the funnel. She also sees wonky funnels where conversion rates are wildly inconsistent. If you're converting at 90% at every stage, you're playing it too safe. If you're focusing on just 2 or 3 big deals per quarter and scrambling when one stalls, you're setting yourself up for failure. Build a diverse pipeline. Some of you are great at bringing leads in, but terrible at moving them through. You nurture endlessly, lunches, golf tournaments, but never ask for the sale. Your pipeline looks healthy, but doesn't move. It's time to start closing. Bottom line, a repeatable sales process gives you control. Track everything. When your problems arise, your data shows exactly where to focus. That's how you move from chaos to consistency. 5. Building your competitive edge. She takes us to a trade show in Corpus Christi. She says, my top competitor walked straight up to me and looked me in the eye and said, I already know who you are. You've been stealing a lot of my customers. Her stomach dropped for a second, but then something shifted. She felt this wave of pride. Her work was being noticed, her impact undeniable. Her name was being talked about in rooms she hadn't even walked into yet. That moment taught her something crucial. To truly succeed in a competitive market, you need to understand your competition better than they understand themselves. It's not enough to say your product is the best. You need to know exactly why. What it outperforms, how it solves problems competitors are too distracted to notice. She learned this lesson again when she bought a Toyota Crown. She'd driven a Mazda CX-9 for 7 years, great reliability, low ownership costs. But the Toyota salesman didn't trash Mazda. He didn't claim Toyota was superior. Instead, he listened to what I loved about my old car and showed me how the Crown elevated those exact features. He talked about the smooth ride and the quiet interior, but what really got her was how the Crown's 20-inch wheels gave it a higher SUV stance as she wanted. He knew both his product and his competition intimately. He didn't need to tear anyone down. He just highlighted where the Crown excelled. That's the approach I want to teach you, she said. Before you can sell with confidence, you need a clear understanding of where your company actually stands. And that starts with a SWOT analysis, SWOT, assessing your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Your strengths aren't always loud. Sometimes they show up quietly. Maybe you're known for fast responses or a smoother process. For her, it was technical support. A customer once told her, no one else follows up the way you do. You always show up with answers. That shifted everything. Your strengths are what customers remember and what keeps them loyal, even when cheaper options exist. These are your superpowers. Weaknesses are uncomfortable to acknowledge, but if we don't name what's broken, we can't fix it. Ask yourself, what do customers complain about? Where do deals stall? Maybe your website is slow, response times are sluggish, or your lead times exceed the competition's. She worked with a company where internal communications was a disaster. Sales and operations clashed, promises weren't kept. Once they named it, they could fix it. Opportunities focus on your growth. What product lines do you rarely sell? Could existing customers use more? What territory have you ignored? She focused on new professors outfitting labs because they cared about long-term costs, exactly her strength. Threats are external factors you can't control. New competitors, changing customers' expectations, regulations, and supply chain issues. But you're not powerless. Recognize risks early and think strategically. If a competitor gains attention for sustainability, highlight your environmental efforts. Review your SWOT twice yearly, January and July. And if you've bought the book, send it to her. Accountability matters. Now analyze your top 2 competitors. Read their About Us page carefully. Write down 3 things they claim make them different. Scan Google reviews and employee feedback for weaknesses. Finally, if you've won clients from competitors, call them and ask what they liked and disliked. Professionally, of course, never bashing. This exercise separates successful salespeople from the rest. By knowing where you shine, where you're weak, and where your competitors are vulnerable, you'll have better conversations and be nearly untouchable. 6. The power of the buying committee. You've done everything right, prospect engaged, the conversation felt genuine, and your solution fits perfectly. Then they say, let me run it by my team. And suddenly you're left in silence, wondering what went wrong. Welcome to the reality of complex sales, a reality most salespeople aren't prepared for. Here's the hard truth, though. 70% of lost sales don't happen because your solution was wrong or your price was too high. It happens because you focused on the wrong person or simply didn't engage enough people. See, you're rarely selling to just one decision maker, yet most salespeople act like you are. In every B2B sale, multiple people influence the final decision. On average, there are 7 people involved in a buying committee, a mix of active and passive decision makers, and your job is to identify 3 critical players: the influencers shaping opinions behind the scenes, the decision maker with final approval authority, and your internal champion who fights for you when you're not in the room. Let's be clear about what each of these roles actually mean. Influencers have opinions, but they don't have power. They interact with your product, provide feedback, and sit in meetings where vendors are discussed, but they're not making the final call. I know this from experience, she says. When I was a chemist working in the lab, I was an influencer. I evaluated equipment, but honestly, I didn't care which vendor we chose in most cases. I had real work to do, and salespeople weren't part of my job description. So respect their role, gather their insights, but don't waste energy trying to turn them into champions. Decision makers, on the other hand, have the authority, but chasing them can slow you down. Executives have virtually no time for salespeople. If they reschedule on you, it's not because you're unimportant, it's because their time is genuinely limited. Instead of spending months trying to book executive meetings, try a different approach. Give value before asking for their time. Share market insights connected to their actual priorities. Keep your asks small and clear. Then let their responses guide you. If they forward your email or delegate next steps, they're listening. Here's the real secret. Your internal champion is the unsung hero of every deal. They're experiencing the biggest problem and they're committed to solving them. While they rarely have contract signing authority, they know the budget, understand who needs to be on board, and will advocate for you relentlessly. They become raving fans, defending your work even years later. But build these relationships through consistent listening, delivering early wins, protecting their influence, staying in touch, and adding value beyond the sale itself. They're not won by charm. They're earned through consistency, credibility, and genuine care. So here's where you start. Pull reports from the past 24 months of wins and losses. Identify the titles that appear most frequently in your closed deals. These reveal your internal champion's profile. Then look at your lost deals. Titles appearing there likely represent influences, showing where your focus may have been misplaced. With this clarity, you can navigate buying committees with confidence and stop leaving deals to chance. 7. The power of impact. Turning problems into opportunities. A hot Texas afternoon brought a call that changed how she thinks about sales. A major electronics manufacturer was in crisis. Their new product, covered in micro scratches, invisible to the naked eye but catastrophic to their reputation. The panic in their voices was unmistakable. Within 48 hours, she was at their Austin facility. Here's what she did differently. She asked for a plant tour first, not to check boxes, but to genuinely see how they worked. Meet the floor team, listen to their rhythms. That's where the truth lives, in the details, not in the conference room slides. She set up her instrument in their lab and tested samples in real time. Within an hour, she had it. At certain production speeds, the coating was losing elasticity and breaking down before fully covering the surface. When she explained what was happening, the tension shifted. This wasn't just a technical problem anymore. It had a name, a cause, and a solution. By the next morning, a $200,000 purchase order landed in her inbox. That moment crystallized what sales really is. It's not a pitch or a perfect demo. It's showing up, diagnosing the real issue, and walking your client from stress to clarity. Throughout her career, she toured hundreds of facilities, getting to know people through follow-up emails, handwritten notes, and coffee meetings. This is what she calls becoming sticky, focusing on the people, products, and processes inside your customer's organization. But here's what most salespeople miss. Pains don't sell. Problems do. Pain is just annoying. People put a Band-Aid on annoying things and move on. They don't act until something becomes a real problem impacting their business or personal life. I once had wrist pain, she said, while writing this book. Annoying enough to take a break, but not enough to spend money on fixing it. Now, imagine a hard deadline costing her thousands if she missed it. Same wrist pain? You'd pay $100 without hesitation. The pain became a problem standing between me and real consequences. Problems are pains that go deeper. They're the bigger issues your prospects think about but don't say aloud. Workforce cuts coming if profits don't increase. High turnover wrecking productivity. A critical patent expiring in 12 months. Supply chain shortages driving up costs. These keep people awake at night. But identifying problems isn't enough. You need to connect them to impacts, the real-world consequences affecting both the business and the person involved. Impacts hit where it matters: revenue, efficiency, job security, stress level, personal stability. When you understand impacts, everything changes. You're not pitching features. You're showing exactly how your solution changes their situation. This is where you stop being another salesperson and become the person who can actually fix things. That's the real power of impact. That's what turns selling into something meaningful. 8. Mastering prospecting, turning cold calls into warm conversations. Wesleyne starts with this. Let me be straight with you. I didn't have a marketing team feeding me leads. I did the cold calling, worked the events, and hunted for opportunities myself. That struggle taught me something invaluable. Stressful prospecting isn't about waiting for someone else to fill your funnel. It's about persistence and creativity. Now, you might think this chapter isn't for you. Maybe you've got a solid marketing team or you're focused on key accounts. But ask yourself honestly, are you truly satisfied with your inbound lead quality? If you answered no, keep reading because everything I'm about to share will change how you think about building your pipeline. Here's the foundation. Every prospecting effort must target your internal champions. If you haven't identified who they are and what problems they face, you're not ready to prospect effectively yet. Everything else builds from there. Moving beyond spray and pray. Modern prospecting often relies on spray and pray methods. Cold calling, cold emailing, social media spam, quantity over quality through limited channels. We're ditching that entirely. Effective prospecting rests on 3 pillars: strategic networking, education, and direct methods. By the end of this section, you'll have at least a dozen different ways to prospect. Strategic networking that actually works. Networking isn't about working a room blindly. It's about showing up where your internal champions actually gather. Skip those massive trade shows crowded with competitors. Instead, target smaller regional events where you can genuinely connect. I used to dread booth sitting until I got intentional. I'd reach out to champions beforehand, inviting them to meet. I submitted abstracts to speak because when you're leading a session, people listen differently. I organized customer appreciation events and did live demos instead of handing out brochures. That shift transformed one solid show into 5 to 10 closed deals within 90 days. Industry events work similarly, and here's something overlooked. Local chambers of commerce. One salesperson attended a chamber event about high-speed internet regulations, and they happened to sell network cabling. They struck up conversations and closed a 3-building upgrade deal within 30 days. Build a network of referral partners too, people in non-competing industries who work with your champions. If you're full-time in sales, aim for 1 event monthly. Otherwise, target 6 events yearly. Education is your competitive edge. Educate them and they will come. But education isn't dumping product knowledge. It's addressing their specific problems with real solutions. Start with your pain points table from champion interviews. Each problem is your content foundation. She launched monthly lunch and learns across multiple states because she couldn't spend 300 days in hotels. Keep them to 90 minutes max, allowing genuine discussions. Save your soft pitch for the end. If an in-person meeting feels overwhelming, run webinars instead. 60 minutes works better than longer sessions. A series of 3 shorter webinars beats 1 marathon. Written content like ebooks and white papers also work. Direct prospecting done right. The days of random cold calling are over. We're transitioning to warm calling and warm emailing. You've profiled your ideal champion and know exactly who to target. Design engineers in their positions less than 3 years, for example. This precision matters. Your emails need an overhaul. Forget generic messages loaded with brochures. Focus on specific pains your prospects face and offer one solution. Keep emails concise with plenty of white space. Set a weekly goal for new prospect outreach, 5 to 20 emails and calls. If you have an established book of business, 5 is ideal. If you're new, aim for 20. Social media prospecting deserves serious attention. Spend 30 minutes weekly engaging with your prospects' content, like their posts, comment thoughtfully, share relevant insights. Most people get minimal engagement, so when you're first to comment, you step into their world at 0 cost. Your LinkedIn profile is your digital handshake, your first impression before anyone responds. Show who you are, who you help, what you believe. Offline methods matter too. When visiting an area, research local prospects and show up unannounced. Cut through the noise with handwritten notes, annotated books, or personalized gifts. The ultimate goal is simple, getting that first meeting. Execute these strategies consistently, and your calendar will book out weeks in advance. That's when you know your prospecting pipeline is working. 9. Diagnose before you prescribe. Let me start with something that still fires me up, she says. Getting pitched to without a single meaningful question asked. It's toxic, and it happens all the time in sales. I want to tell you about a time I got completely misled. A company reached out claiming a major media outlet wanted me to contribute to a national article. I was thrilled, but before the meeting, 6 reminder emails arrived. Not confirmations, reminders. That was the first red flag. Then the actual call happened. The person I scheduled with wasn't even there. Someone else showed up with no explanation. After surface-level small talk, they asked about my PR goals. That's when I knew the truth. There was no article. This was a cold pitch disguised as something it wasn't. They lied to get me in the room. Here's what matters. Discovery is the most sacred part of selling. That's where you learn who someone is, what they actually need, and whether you can genuinely help. But they never earned the right to ask me anything. They skipped trust entirely. If they'd been honest, maybe we could have had a real conversation, but instead they showed up to sell while I showed up guarded. The opportunity was already dead. Imagine visiting a doctor about a persistent cough. Instead of examining you, he launches into a 20-minute speech about his credentials and advanced techniques. Then without listening to your lungs, he prescribes surgery for tomorrow. That's medical malpractice. But in sales, we do this constantly. We pitch solutions before understanding the actual problem. Discovery is about uncovering the pains, problems, and impacts your prospects face. You can't do that with cookie-cutter slides. You need genuine conversation. I'm asking you to make a pact, she says. Stop making discovery meetings about you and your company. Focus on getting a full diagnosis before recommending solutions. A strong discovery meeting isn't about how much you talk. Aim 25% or less of you talking. In 30 minutes, you're talking 8 minutes maximum. The more your prospect talks, the more successful you've been. I use the Dive Deep discovery framework to guide these conversations. Dive, D-I-V-E, stands for dig, investigate, validate, and echo. Dig means going deeper below the surface level, asking questions that make your prospects pause because nobody's asked them before. I, for investigate questions that are process-oriented, walking through how things work. V for validate questions, be specific about the precise impact and details. And E for echo questions, confirming what you've heard, showing that you're genuinely listening and you've got it right. Then there are questions you should absolutely never ask. Complex questions overwhelm. Leading questions assume you already know the answer. And pushy questions, what keeps you up at night? What will you order? That makes people feel like transactions, not people. Remember this. Discovery is diagnostic work. You're not closing here. You're building trust and understanding before anything that comes next. That's where the real sales begin. 10. Stop selling on price. Start selling on value. This segment is about one of the most transformative realizations she had in her entire sales career. And honestly, it's what changed everything for her. She learned this lesson the hard way. Early on, she was selling German engineering, a genuinely superior product, but prospects only saw the 30% price premium. Every objection about cost sent her running to her manager for a discount. She'd feel relieved closing the deal, thinking she'd won, having no idea she was setting a dangerous trap. Same customers came back expecting that discount every time. Then one day, a client she worked with for months, someone she'd bent over backwards for, chose a competitor because they were $2,000 cheaper on a $60,000+ deal. That's when it finally clicked. When you win on price, you lose on price because you never built any value in the first place. Here's what I learned, she says. When a prospect says your price is too high, 80% of the time it's not actually the issue. What they're really saying is that you haven't shown them something worth what you're asking. The fix requires discipline. Stop doing feature dumps. Start demonstrating exactly how your solution solves their problem. Give them 5 features maximum. Focus on one problem, one solution. For example, if you uncover that shift changes cost 15 minutes of downtime daily, that's 27 hours of lost production monthly. And if your cloud software eliminates that, then don't explain how the system works. Show John logging off while Jane logs in seamlessly and then tie it back. This eliminates 27 hours of lost production you mentioned. Does this solve your biggest concern? How about demos? Do them, but only when they matter. Here's what's non-negotiable. Proposal reviews must happen in person or virtually. Never email a quote to a new prospect. That's lazy selling. You're forcing them into your world instead of stepping into theirs. When you present the proposal, make it a conversation. Recap their problems paired with your solutions. Get agreement at each step. Then show your company value, not awards or history, but why you're the best partner for their specific needs. Present their investment with ROI if possible. Then ask for the sale with confidence. Based on everything we discussed, I believe this solution is the right fit. Are you ready to move forward? This isn't pressure, it's partnership. If they hesitate, ask what concerns remain. If they need consensus, schedule that decision committee meeting immediately. The entire process filters out unqualified prospects. By proposal review, if you've done the right work, you should close within 30 days. Every step matters. Your prospects won't take your process seriously if you don't. That's how you stop selling on price and start selling on value. 11. Turning resistance into revenue. Let's walk through something that changes everything once you understand it, how objections actually work, and more importantly, how to turn them into your biggest asset. She relates this story. I'll never forget a conversation with the VP of sales whose team was burning out, missing numbers and losing 70% of trainees within a year. When I quoted him double what he expected, he nearly fell out of his chair. But instead of defending my price, I took him through the real problem. His division had zero sales training. His trainees were generating only $150K each, not even covering their costs. And if nothing changed, he'd lose 20% of his funding to another department. By the time I finished, price wasn't the issue anymore. The question became, can we afford not to fix this? That's when she really understood something fundamental. Objections fall into 4 categories: money, relationships, competition, and timing. Your job isn't to avoid them. It's to address them early and steer the conversation toward value. Wait until the end, and you're already defensive. Let's talk pricing first, because this is where most salespeople get it wrong. You never win or lose on price. A pricing objection means you haven't built enough value. Budget constraints and affordability are completely different things. In B2B sales, if they're taking meetings with you, they can afford some version of your solution. So early in discovery, I simply ask, our solution ranges from $45K to $75K. Is that in line with your expectations? Their answer tells you everything about whether there's a real gap to address. The relationship piece goes much deeper than just liking you. It's about trust, and that comes from being a person of your word. But here's what most salespeople miss: the internal champion. This person opens doors, makes introduction, and guides you through the internal landscape. If you're in a proposal review and your contact says they don't have authority to decide, your alarm should blare. It means you've missed a critical step. A true champion tells you how decisions are made, and who else needs involvement, and when to bring them in. Now on competition, most salespeople only watch external competitors. That's a mistake. Internal competition kills deals just as often. Competing priorities, shifting budgets within the organization, these are the silent deal killers. But here's the biggest competitor you're ignoring: the do-nothing competitor. Staying with the status quo is always easier than implementing a change. You need to prove the cost of inaction exceeds the cost of change. Finally, timing. Stop asking when they want to buy. Ask when they need their problem solved. Then back calculate your delivery and implementation to align with their deadline. When a deal is months away, most salespeople fade out with lazy check-ins. Don't do that. Provide value-driven touchpoints instead. Send relevant industry updates, share case studies, offer refresher demos. Stay top of mind by being a resource, not just a salesperson. The truth is, resistance isn't your enemy. It's information. And when you know how to read it, it becomes your roadmap to closing deals that actually matter. 12. Mastering your territory, from surviving to thriving. We're going to talk about something that fundamentally changed your career and can change yours too. We're talking about mastering your territory. She says this: let me take you back to the end of 2014. I just had a baby, taken 6 weeks off, somehow still finished as the number 2 salesperson in my division. Actually, I had 125% of my annual quota in just 46 weeks. I felt invincible. I was based in Houston working with oil companies. Oil was trading at over $100 a barrel. Sound familiar? My clients were printing money and I couldn't miss. Business was booming. Then one of my top clients dropped a bombshell on me. He said the bubble was going to burst. By mid-year, I watched my biggest prospects rush to place orders before budgets got slashed. Then the crash hit. Every day brought headlines of another oil company laying people off. My pipeline evaporated overnight. Nearly 50% of my contacts were gone. So I did what any good salesperson should do. I stopped panicking and started researching. I realized that while oil was tanking, plastics and asphalt were booming. These industries relied on byproducts of crude oil. With oil prices down, their raw materials were cheaper than ever. That meant higher profits and more demand for my services. I had to flip my entire customer base. For the first half of 2015, I spent every week in front of brand new prospects. I went to industry events, I learned from existing customers, and it paid off. In less than a year, I flipped my customer base from 80% oil to only 35%. I was named Salesperson of the Year in 2015. But here's what I didn't do. I didn't sit in my office complaining. I didn't waste time cold calling, getting discouraged. Instead, I got in front of the right people. I covered my territory geographically and by industry more effectively than ever before. So your territory is like your own small business. You get out of it what you put into it. She learned early on that untapped potential exists in places most salespeople ignore. When she visited small towns where the biggest employer was the company she was calling on, people lit up. She'd hear, "Oh, we've never had a vendor take us to lunch. No one ever comes to visit us." These were golden opportunities her competitors had completely overlooked. Most salespeople take the path of least resistance. They go where it's easy and familiar. That's exactly why territory planning matters. If you're just reacting to whatever comes your way, you're leaving money on the table. Here's how to build a smarter territory strategy. Start with your existing customers. They hold the key to your next sale. Analyze where your highest concentration of customers is. What industries are they in? Success leaves clues. Find the common thread. Your best customers likely share common traits. She worked with a rep once who had tons of activity but couldn't close deals. When she looked closer, he was spending time on the wrong prospects. When he shifted focus to companies that looked like his best customers, his close rate tripled. Prioritize where you spend your time. 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your accounts. Find the right 20% and prioritize them ruthlessly. Plan your travel like a pro. Cluster your meetings. If you're traveling to Dallas for one meeting, schedule 3 to 5 additional visits in that area. Map everything out weeks in advance. And expand beyond the obvious. Your biggest wins come from opportunities others ignore. Look for adjacent industries with similar needs. Ask current customers for introductions. Execute with discipline. A plan means nothing without implementation. Review your calendar weekly. Block time for travel and prospecting. Be proactive. And here's your truth. Your territory is not just a list of accounts. It's an ecosystem of opportunities waiting to be uncovered. The effort you put into planning, prioritizing, and executing will determine your results. You have two choices. You can react to whatever comes your way, or you can take control and create the results you want. Success is not about luck. It's about being intentional. So go take charge, work smarter, and own your territory. 13. Bet on yourself. In this final chapter, she says, I want to be real with you about something that shaped my entire career. When I walked into that first international sales meeting in Germany, I was the only black person in the room, and one of just 5 women among thousands. My stomach was in knots. I remember thinking there was no way I'd be successful. I didn't belong there. I had no sales training, no mentors, no roadmap. But I had one choice to make. Let that doubt consume me or prove myself wrong. I chose to bet on myself, and that decision changed everything. That young woman who doubted herself went on to close millions in business and teach thousands of salespeople how to win. Recently, a salesman she hired over a decade ago told her something that stopped her cold. He said that last year he paid more in taxes than his entire salary was before working with her. That's what happens when you commit to growth. Now, everything covered in this book, all those frameworks, all those strategies, they come down to one fundamental truth. When you tie your solution directly to clear, undeniable impact, you stop selling and start solving something that actually matters. That's why your warm email matters. Your subject line needs to be short, curious, and relevant, not gimmicky. Anchored to something real in their world. Product recall, a compliance challenge, a missed shipment. Then introduce yourself with one sentence focused on the value you bring, not your credentials. The call to action should feel optional but valuable. Before hitting send, ask yourself these questions. Is this relevant? Does it speak to a real problem? Would you reply to it yourself? When you're in discovery conversations, use the dive deep framework to shift from interrogation to clarity. Dig below the surface to find hidden blockers. Investigate their actual day-to-day processes where bottlenecks are hiding. Validate the impact so they feel the cost of inaction. And remember, you should talk less than 1/3 of the time. When it comes to proposals, treat them as conversations, not documents. Recap the 2 to 3 most pressing problems using their exact language. Map each problem directly to your solution. Show, don't tell. Guide, don't push. Tie price to value, not features. But here's what matters most. Reading this book isn't enough. If you don't take action, nothing changes. This career doesn't tolerate passivity. You'll have days when you question everything. Most people quit in those moments, and that's exactly why most people never become great. What separates truly successful salespeople from average ones isn't talent or luck. It's how many times you get back up after being knocked down. The strategies in this book won't work perfectly the first time. That's not a reason to quit. That's a reason to go back, reread, refine, and execute again. In the next 24 hours, take one step. Reach out to a new prospect, revisit a lost deal, refine your pitch. Action beats hesitation every single time. You already have everything you need. This isn't goodbye. This is the beginning of your next level. Now go make it happen. I'm rooting for you. So we reached the end of my overview of The Sales Reset. Forget the scripts. Trust yourself. Win consistently. By Wesleyne Whittaker. What drew me to do a podcast on this book for somebody who's involved in helping customers accelerate their medtech product development programs is that every program we work on, we're helping customers solve problems. And this is different from addressing their pain points. Wesleyne points out that addressing someone's pain point is different than helping them solve their problems. Pain points are more generic. You can put a Band-Aid on a pain point, as Wesleyne says, but a problem is an obstacle that has to be moved, and you have to address it in a more immediate fashion. Whether we're putting together proposals or we're making changes to software or work we've done for a customer in the past, most important part of this is to listen to them, understand what the problem is, find the root causes, and then come up with a focused solution to solve that problem. For those writing proposals, everybody assisted with writing of those proposals should understand this framework that Wesleyne proposes to ensure that what we're delivering is solving real problems, that we're solving real problems that the customer has. And then when you're presenting solutions to the customer, you're doing it in a way that follows this framework that she provides, ensuring the right people are in the room and making sure you've listened carefully and you're tying the value of your solution to the proposal that you have in front of them. Wesleyne did a wonderful job on this book. She provides many resources and many more examples in the book, including PDF guides and worksheets that are available and a website that's available for people who buy her book as well. So I recommend it. Please pick up a copy of it on Amazon or your favorite bookstore if you want to learn more. Remember that our website is www.innoguide.net, where we have many resources for innovators, those who want to leverage system-level thinking to get runaway timelines under control in the medical product development, including how to use AI in that development process without adding risk, and those who want to build medical products that will support embedded machine learning now or in the future. Know that you'll be learning it from someone who's worked in medtech for 30 years and has led teams who developed and delivered 66 medical products. I've also recently launched MedX, our medical executive discussion forum, where leaders gather every month to share insights about how to navigate medical product development in the age of AI. Join using the MedX forum button on my LinkedIn page. I want to thank Steve McIntyre for producing this, and I truly want to thank you for joining us. I look forward to seeing you next time. That's a wrap.